The sun hung low over the small farming town, casting long shadows across the dusty roads. Sarah Thompson stood outside her modest farmhouse, brushing dirt from her hands after a morning spent tending to her vegetable garden. At 42, she carried herself with quiet dignity, her calloused hands and weathered face telling stories of years spent working the land. She wasn't wealthy, but she was content, until today. Sarah had decided to visit the newly opened boutique in town, hoping to buy a simple dress for her niece's wedding. The shop, chic and elite, stood out like a sore thumb among the rustic charm of the other buildings. Its gleaming windows and pristine interior seemed designed to intimidate anyone who didn't belong. Still, Sarah entered, clutching her worn leather purse tightly against her chest. Inside, the air smelled faintly of expensive perfume, and soft jazz played in the background. A saleswoman with an impeccably tailored suit approached her, her smile polite but distant. "May I help you?" she asked, her tone laced with condescension. "I'm just looking," Sarah replied softly, scanning the racks of designer dresses. Her fingers brushed against a navy blue gown that caught her eye. It was elegant, yet understated, perfect for the occasion. But as she reached for it, another customer, a tall woman wearing oversized sunglasses, snatched it first. "Excuse me," Sarah said, trying to remain calm. "I was going to take that one," the woman sneered. "Well, you should have been quicker." She turned to the saleswoman. "This is why we need better clientele here. Some people clearly don't understand exclusivity." Sarah felt her cheeks burn. Before she could respond, the saleswoman chimed in. "Perhaps this isn't the right place for you, ma'am. Our items are quite exclusive." Stunned, Sarah stepped back. "Exclusive? What does that even mean?" "It means," the saleswoman replied coldly, "that not everyone can afford what we offer. Maybe try the thrift store down the road." The words hit Sarah like a slap. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but instead she turned and walked out, her heart pounding with shame and anger. As she crossed the threshold, she heard the bell above the door jingle behind her, followed by muffled laughter. Back home, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the wall. Her mind replayed the scene over and over. How dare they treat her like that? Who were they to decide her worth based on appearances? Yet, beneath her indignation lay a deeper insecurity, one she rarely acknowledged. Was she truly good enough? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of tires crunching gravel outside. Curious, she peeked through the window and froze. A sleek, black SUV pulled into her driveway. Its tinted windows made it impossible to see inside, but she recognized the license plate immediately, BH001. It belonged to her husband, Ethan. Ethan hadn't been home in weeks. As a self-made billionaire, he spent most of his time traveling for business, leaving Sarah to manage the farm alone. Their marriage had grown distant over the years, though neither of them spoke about it openly. He sent money regularly, ensuring she lacked nothing materially, but emotionally, they were strangers. The driver's door opened, and Ethan stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, he looked every bit the powerful man he was. His sharp features softened slightly when he saw Sarah standing in the doorway. "Sarah," he said, his deep voice tinged with surprise. "You're here." "Where else would I be?" she shot back, unable to hide her bitterness. "What brings you back so suddenly?" He hesitated, glancing around the property before meeting her gaze. "We need to talk. Inside." Reluctantly, Sarah led him to the living room. The contrast between Ethan's polished demeanor and their humble surroundings was stark. He sat awkwardly on the edge of the couch, while Sarah perched on a wooden chair across from him. "What's this about, Ethan?" she demanded, folding her arms across her chest. He sighed heavily. "There's something I haven't told you. Something important." Sarah's stomach tightened. "Important how?" Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from outside. Both turned toward the door as it creaked open, revealing a young woman in her 20s, carrying a suitcase. Her resemblance to Ethan was unmistakable. from her piercing blue eyes to her confident posture. "Dad," the woman said, addressing Ethan, "I thought you said no one would be here." Sarah's breath hitched. Who is this?" Ethan rubbed his temples, looking older than she'd ever seen him. "Sarah, this is Emily, my daughter, from before we met." The room fell silent, the weight of Ethan's revelation pressing down on them like a suffocating fog. Sarah stared at the young woman standing in her doorway, her mind racing to process what she had just heard. Emily shifted uncomfortably under Sarah's gaze, clutching her suitcase as if it were a lifeline. "Your daughter," Sarah finally managed, her voice trembling. She turned to Ethan, her eyes searching his face for answers. "You never mentioned having a child." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "It's complicated, Sarah. I didn't think it was relevant to our life together." "Not relevant?" Sarah repeated, her voice rising. "You kept this from me for 20 years, Ethan. How is that not relevant?" Emily stepped forward cautiously, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. "Look, I didn't ask to be here. Dad said he needed to come back home, and I thought, this isn't your home," Sarah snapped, surprising even herself with the sharpness of her tone. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. "I'm sorry. This is just a lot to take in." Ethan stood up, moving closer to Sarah. "I know this is shocking, but we need to talk about it calmly. Emily has been living abroad for years, but now she's in trouble and needs help." What kind of trouble?" Sarah asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Emily hesitated before speaking. "Financial trouble. I lost everything in a bad investment, and I have nowhere else to go." Sarah crossed her arms, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "So you expect us to bail you out, just like that?" "It's not like that," Ethan interjected, his tone firm but pleading. "She's my daughter, Sarah. We can't turn our backs on her." Sarah turned away, pacing the small living room. Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Anger at Ethan for keeping such a secret, resentment toward Emily for barging into her life, and an underlying sense of betrayal that threatened to overwhelm her. Yet beneath it all, she felt a flicker of empathy. She knew what it was like to struggle, to feel abandoned by those who were supposed to care. "I need some air," she muttered, brushing past them and stepping outside. The cool evening breeze did little to soothe her frayed nerves. She leaned against the porch railing, staring out at the fields she had worked so hard to maintain. Her thoughts drifted back to earlier that day, the humiliation at the boutique, the snide comments, the way they had dismissed her without a second thought. It all seemed trivial now, compared to the bombshell Ethan had dropped. A few minutes later, Ethan joined her on the porch. He stood beside her, his hands shoved into his pockets. "I know I messed up, Sarah. I should have told you about Emily years ago." "Yes, you should have," she replied, her voice low but steady. "But it's not just about that. It's about trust, Ethan. You've been absent for so long, and now you show up with this situation. What do you expect me to do?" "I don't expect anything," he said softly, "but I hope you'll understand. Emily is family, whether we like it or not." Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "Family? That's rich coming from you. When was the last time you acted like part of this family?" Ethan flinched at her words, but he didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. "There's something else you need to know." She glanced at him warily. "What is it?" He handed her the paper, his expression unreadable. "It's a letter from my lawyer. I've been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She stared at the letter, unable to fully comprehend its implications. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I wanted to protect you," he admitted. "But now, with Emily here and my condition, I need to make sure things are taken care of, for both of you." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, though she fought to hold them back. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" "It does," Ethan said quietly. "And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. They stood in silence for a long moment, the enormity of the situation settling over them like a heavy blanket. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "We'll figure it out. But things have to change, Ethan, starting now." Inside the house, Emily sat on the couch, her fingers nervously twisting the strap of her suitcase. She had expected resistance from Sarah, but the raw emotion in the older woman's voice had caught her off guard. For the first time, she wondered if coming here had been a mistake. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Sarah entered the room, her expression guarded but calm. "Emily, right?" The younger woman nodded. "Yes, and I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I didn't mean to cause any trouble." Sarah studied her for a moment, noting the vulnerability behind her confident facade. "You're Ethan's daughter. That makes you part of this mess, whether either of us likes it or not." Emily winced. "I get it, you're mad. I would be too." "It's not just about being mad," Sarah said, sitting down across from her. "It's about figuring out how to move forward. Your father's health. It complicates things. We'll need to work together." Emily looked surprised. "You're willing to help me?" "I didn't say that," Sarah replied firmly, "but I won't turn my back on someone in need. Not even now." As the two women began to talk, tentatively finding common ground, Ethan watched from the doorway. He felt a pang of guilt for the chaos he had brought into Sarah's life, but also a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, despite everything, they could find a way to rebuild what had been broken. The days that followed were a blur of tension and uneasy coexistence. Sarah found herself navigating a fragile truce with Emily, while Ethan's presence loomed over the household like an unspoken storm. The farm, once a sanctuary of simplicity and routine, now felt suffocating under the weight of secrets and unresolved emotions. Sarah spent her mornings tending to the fields, her hands moving mechanically as her mind churned with questions about the future. Emily, for her part, tried to make herself useful. She helped with chores around the house, though her polished nails and designer clothes made it clear she was out of her element. One afternoon, as they worked side by side in the kitchen, Sarah broke the silence. "You're not cut out for this life," Sarah said bluntly, gesturing to Emily's dirt-streaked blouse. "Why did you really come here?" Emily paused, her knife hovering over the vegetables she was chopping. "I told you, I lost everything. My business failed, my apartment was repossessed, and I didn't know where else to go." Sarah studied her carefully. "But why here? Why now? You could have gone to your mother." Emily flinched at the mention of her mother. "She passed away 2 years ago, cancer. After that it was just me and Dad, but he was always too busy with work to notice I existed. When things fell apart, I thought maybe he'd finally step up." Sarah felt a pang of sympathy, but quickly suppressed it. "And what do you expect from us? A handout? A fresh start?" "I don't know," Emily admitted, her voice cracking. "Maybe just a chance to prove I'm not as useless as everyone thinks I am." The honesty in her words caught Sarah off guard. For the first time, she saw glimpses of vulnerability beneath Emily's confident exterior. It reminded her of herself, of the struggles she had faced when she first arrived in this small town decades ago, alone and unsure of her place in the world. Later that evening, Ethan called a family meeting in the living room. He looked more exhausted than ever, his usual commanding presence diminished by the toll of his diagnosis. "We need to talk about what comes next," he began, his voice heavy with resignation. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her tone guarded. "My condition is progressing faster than expected," he explained. "The doctors say I'll need to slow down soon. That means stepping back from the company and making decisions about my estate." Emily's eyes widened. "Estate? You mean money?" "It's not just about money," Ethan snapped, irritation flashing across his face. "It's about responsibility, about ensuring that both of you are taken care of when I'm no longer able to provide for you." Sarah leaned forward, her expression hardening. "And what does that look like exactly? Are you planning to leave everything to Emily and leave me stranded here?" "No!" Ethan exclaimed, his frustration giving way to desperation. "That's why we need to figure this out together. I want to divide my assets fairly, but I also want to make sure neither of you ends up alone." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Sarah glanced at Emily, who sat quietly, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. For all her bravado, the young woman seemed genuinely lost, a stranger in a world she didn't understand. Finally, Sarah spoke. "If we're going to do this, there need to be rules. No more secrets. No more running away when things get tough." Emily nodded hesitantly. "Agreed." Ethan sighed in relief, though the tension in the room remained palpable. "Thank you both. This isn't easy for any of us, but I believe we can find a way forward." As the meeting ended, Sarah stepped outside for some fresh air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. She leaned against the porch railing, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty. Could she truly forgive Ethan for his mistakes? Could she trust Emily to honor their fragile agreement? Her musings were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw Emily approaching cautiously. "Can we talk?" the younger woman asked. Sarah hesitated before nodding. "All right." Emily took a deep breath. "I know I messed up by showing up like this, and I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I want to try to be better, not just for Dad, but for myself." Sarah studied her carefully, searching for sincerity in her words. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but if you're serious, I'll give you a chance." A small smile flickered across Emily's face. "Thank you." As they stood there under the fading light, an unspoken understanding passed between them. The road ahead would be difficult, but perhaps they could navigate it together, if they were willing to let go of the past and embrace the possibility of redemption. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of compromise and adaptation. Sarah, Ethan, and Emily navigated their shared life with cautious steps, each trying to find their place in this new reality. The farm became a battleground of emotions, moments of connection intertwined with lingering resentment. Yet, amidst the tension, small acts of kindness began to bridge the gaps between them. One morning, as Sarah watered the vegetable garden, she noticed Emily kneeling beside her, planting seedlings with surprising care. "You're getting better at this," Sarah commented, her tone softer than usual. Emily looked up, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I figured I should at least try to earn my keep around here." Sarah nodded, acknowledging the effort. "It's not just about earning your keep, it's about finding purpose, something you can hold on to when things get tough." Emily paused, her hands resting on the soil. "Do you think I'll ever find that? Purpose, I mean." "You already have," Sarah replied, surprising even herself. "You came here broken, but you're trying to put yourself back together. That's a start." The exchange marked a turning point in their relationship. Slowly, trust began to take root, fragile but real. Meanwhile, Ethan's condition worsened, forcing him to confront the limitations of his once unstoppable drive. He spent more time at home, observing the changes unfolding around him with a mix of pride and regret. One evening, as they gathered for dinner, Ethan addressed them both. "I've been thinking about the future," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I want to ensure that neither of you feels abandoned when I'm gone." Sarah set down her fork, her expression unreadable. "What are you proposing?" "I've decided to divide my assets equally between you two," he explained. "But it's not just about money. I want you to support each other, to build something together." Emily frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "Dad, I don't need charity. I can figure things out on my own." "It's not charity," Ethan insisted. "It's a chance to rewrite the mistakes of my past, to give you both the family I never could." Sarah met his gaze, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. For years, she had resented his absence, his secrets, his inability to be present. But now, faced with his vulnerability, she felt a flicker of compassion. "If that's what you want, we'll honor it," she said finally. "But it's going to take more than money to fix what's broken." Ethan nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "I know. and I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to make amends. As the days passed, Sarah and Emily worked side by side, transforming the farm into a symbol of their newfound unity. They planted new crops, repaired old fences, and even started a small roadside stand to sell fresh produce. The boutique incident seemed like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the challenges they had overcome together. One afternoon, as they prepared for the grand opening of their stand, a sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway. Sarah recognized it immediately. It was Ethan's car, driven by his assistant. The young man stepped out, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Mr. Thompson wanted me to deliver these to you," he said, handing them to Sarah. She took the flowers, her heart sinking as she read the note attached. "For Sarah and Emily, thank you for showing me what truly matters. Love always, Ethan." Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized what it meant. Ethan was gone. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and Emily leaned on each other more than ever. They honored Ethan's memory by continuing to work the land he had loved, building a life rooted in resilience and forgiveness. Though scars remained, they found solace in knowing they had grown stronger through adversity. As the sun set over the fields one evening, Sarah turned to Emily. "We did good, didn't we?" Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden light. "Yeah, we did." If you enjoyed this emotional journey of love, loss, and redemption, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories. Leave a like if you were moved by Sarah and Emily's transformation, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in Sarah's shoes? "Already have," Sarah replied, surprising even herself. "You came here broken, but you're trying to put yourself back together. That's a start." The exchange marked a turning point in their relationship. Slowly, trust began to take root, fragile but real. Meanwhile, Ethan's condition worsened, forcing him to confront the limitations of his once unstoppable drive. He spent more time at home, observing the changes unfolding around him with a mix of pride and regret. One evening, as they gathered for dinner, Ethan addressed them both. "I've been thinking about the future," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I want to ensure that neither of you feels abandoned when I'm gone." Sarah set down her fork, her expression unreadable. "What are you proposing?" "I've decided to divide my assets equally between you two," he explained. "But it's not just about money. I want you to support each other, to build something together." Emily frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "Dad, I don't need charity. I can figure things out on my own." "It's not charity," Ethan insisted. "It's a chance to rewrite the mistakes of my past, to give you both the family I never could." Sarah met his gaze, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. For years, she had resented his absence, his secrets, his inability to be present. But now, faced with his vulnerability, she felt a flicker of compassion. "If that's what you want, we'll honor it," she said finally. "But it's going to take more than money to fix what's broken." Ethan nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "I know, and I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to make amends." As the days passed, Sarah and Emily worked side by side, transforming the farm into a symbol of their newfound unity. They planted new crops, repaired old fences, and even started a small roadside stand to sell fresh produce. The boutique incident seemed like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the challenges they had overcome together. One afternoon, as they prepared for the grand opening of their stand, a sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway. Sarah recognized it immediately. It was Ethan's car, driven by his assistant. The young man stepped out, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Mr. Thompson wanted me to deliver these to you," he said, handing them to Sarah. She took the flowers, her heart sinking as she read the note attached. "For Sarah and Emily, thank you for showing me what truly matters. Love always, Ethan." Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized what it meant. Ethan was gone. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and Emily leaned on each other more than ever. They honored Ethan's memory by continuing to work the land he had loved, building a life rooted in resilience and forgiveness. Though scars remained, They found solace in knowing they had grown stronger through adversity. As the sun set over the fields one evening, Sarah turned to Emily. "We did good, didn't we?" Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden light. "Yeah, we did." If you enjoyed this emotional journey of love, loss, and redemption, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories. Leave a like if you were moved by Sarah and Emily's